So my name is Janik Knittle. See me up there. I don't have any cool slides like Rico, but you got me there. So I'm a freelance Rails developer. I've been doing this now for a couple of years. And before that, I was doing WordPress, doing some very cheesy WordPress sites for people that just needed basic web presence, as well as some like graphic design. But eventually I ended up in Rails, and that's going to just kind of explain how I got there. Apparently my bio changed since the last time I read it, but I did used to say that I started in mechanical engineering. I decided to go that route because I just like building things, but I didn't realize how hard that is. It's a pretty difficult degree to get into, and I'm not the best student, so I was doing that, and then my first interaction with programming was actually a C++ and MATLAB class. Probably not the best way. I hated it. It didn't make any sense to me. It took me forever to get through all the homework, and I think I barely passed it, but I think I did. So fast forward a couple of years, I did exactly what Rico did, and I switched to an easier major. I went with marketing, and that's what I ended up finishing with. But that last year, my senior year, I decided to take part in a startup weekend. And I don't know if you don't know what startup weekend is. It's similar to a hackathon, but over the course of the weekend, you got the ability, it's a competition to create a business. So I joined that. I was a non-technical member of our group, and I joined with a bunch of developers. And so we decided to build basically a shift scheduling notification app. You would form a group with your coworkers, and then if you wanted to have swap your shift, you just click a nice little button on our app, and it would notify everybody and send them text messages. And we decided to build that in Rails. And the cool thing about Rails, if you've ever done anything in it, is that it's really fast to prototype and get a quick MVP out of it. And because of this, we actually came up with a demoable application, and we ran that at the final presentation after the weekend. And it was awesome compared to all of our other competitors who just had a slide deck of what their potential app might look like. But instead, we had this application, and when the presenter went up there, he clicked a button, and we had stationed all of ourselves around the room, and all of our cell phones went off at the same time that, hey, so-and-so wants their shift swapped. So I think a big part of why we won that event was because we had this cool, functioning app. I wish I could look at the code now, because from what I understand, it was pretty brutal. And they quickly deleted everything that was there. They're pretty embarrassed with it. But it worked, and that's what mattered. But the cool thing about winning that event is that we were accepted into an incubator. The local incubator took us on. They gave us $5,000, access to all their advisors. They took no equity. And that alone was a really big opportunity. But the cooler takeaway from that event was that one of the keynote speaker of the event was at the time the CTA of Google. His name was Michael T. Jones. And he was really impressed with our idea and our group as a whole, that he basically opened himself up to advice and just going to be there and help us out and give us any sort of help that we might need, as well as be on our board of directors. And so that was pretty cool. It was it was a huge opportunity. Like, this is something that might actually take off down the road. And part of the reason why I switched to marketing is I wanted to own my own business in the future, not necessarily just slave away in a cubicle. So, being that I was not part of the technical group, one of the technical members, I decided I wanted to try to be a little bit more involved in the group, and talked about it and found that none of the technical members knew any mobile development. So I'm like, all right, I got this. And I had an Android at the time, so I did a little research, and I found that it was written in Java. I'm like, okay, cool. So I go online and start, teaching myself and go through all the various tutorials I could find, and Code Academy and all these other things. And so a couple weeks go by, and I think by that point, like, okay, I'm ready. I think I can build a mobile app. So I download the SDK, open it up, and everything looks foreign to me. I'm just like, I have no idea what any of this is. That's when I came to find out that Java and JavaScript are totally different. And I mean, they're similar names, and so I figured, oh, okay, like I can learn one, you know, maybe it's the same thing. It's not at all, which was kind of a knockback. I wasn't really expecting that. So that was kind of the end of my programming for a while. And but a couple, as the semester went on, like I said, we were seniors, and the technical developers in our group, they were finishing up projects, and they already had jobs lined up, and this wasn't really a priority for them. And so the whole project, our app, kind of fell apart, and which was really a bummer for me because this is something I really wanted to do. I was really interested. I thought we had a great opportunity. We had some really interesting players who were advising us, and so to lose out on that opportunity is what really kind of jump-started me to say, okay, I don't want to miss this opportunity again, so I will actually learn how to program myself. And because we were building it in Rails is what made me decide to start with Ruby and then move on from there. So I graduated, and then kind of the rest is history from that point. I just hacked away at my own personal projects. I was living in small towns in Idaho and Arizona, and kind of once I got to a point where I realized I was doing it all by myself and I had nobody to talk to is when I kind of made a knee-jerk decision, hopped in the car, and moved up to Portland. And so I've been here now for a couple of years, and meeting Tim and Rico and all these other guys who have kind of like pushed my career along and got me to the point where people actually pay me to write code, which is pretty cool coming from somebody who originally went from marketing, and because it was an easier career or easier major, because I just wanted to get done with school, and had if you get a degree in marketing, you're probably going to be writing copywriting, that kind of thing. And it's interesting, but it's not anything I ever wanted to do. But now I'm at a point where I'm actually doing this somewhat professionally, which is pretty cool, and making a living out of it. So that's kind of my little story on how I got to the point where now I'm developing and my introduction to programming. So yeah.